South Africa's schools are set to reopen on the 1st of June in a phased approach, starting with grades 12 and 7. However, strict social distancing measures will prevent most sporting and extracurricular activities from taking place. And we do have some parents who may decide to keep their children at home altogether. Now, to unpack what this means, I'm joined on the line now by Rebecca Pretorius, and she's the country manager at Crimson Education. Thank you for joining us tonight, Rebecca. I find it quite interesting that you say that this period of COVID-19 presents a very unique opportunities for students to shine, especially when approaching universities that they would like to study at. Tell us more about this.
Sure. I think overall universities are seeking students who are able to handle, adapt to, improve a situation, for themselves and those around them. They're looking for students with the ability to act smartly, efficiently, empathetically, and this really is an opportunity for students to be able to show evidence of that in the way they've contributed to the environment around them, improved their own situation, extended themselves as a student, so they're able to show that rather than just explain it in an essay, which perhaps they were doing in the past. Given that we're in a real crisis, now's the time to show how they act in response to that.
Now, in a very practical way, how does then a prospective university student communicate or demonstrate this to the institution of their choice?
So differently for different institutions and different areas. So, for example, in the U.S., there's a lot of opportunity within the application process itself for them to be able to show their awards, their achievements, activities, extracurricular activities, independent work, and so on. In the UK, for an application to the UK and generally European countries would be more similar to that, students will get the opportunity to write an essay about what they've done in the UK and, like I say, European countries, specifically relating to the subject that they're interested in applying to, so that their major or degree. For the US, in addition to the many places they have already in their application, they've actually added an opportunity, a writing opportunity for students so that they can actually respond and talk about how COVID-19 and the pandemic and the crisis has affected them personally. So they get the opportunity to write about that, whether it's through a loss of income of a parent, any kind of illness, death that they may have experienced because of the crisis, or any kind of natural disaster that they've kind of lived through as well.
And how does that then translate to a South African situation and South African institutions? Do they too give prospective students the opportunity to showcase their adaptability?
I think in South Africa, and it's much closer to a system in, say, the UK and most of Europe as well, where it's much more of an academic application. So it is an application where students are required to, meet kind of minimum requirements, and generally, as we know, to exceed those requirements as well to get a place because of the limited number of places. So it's a more academic environment. So the focus is more on a numerical evaluation. For the U.S., and particularly for the kind of top private schools in the U.S., universities in the U.S. that are very popular, as places to apply to for international students, they've got a greater focus on a more holistic application and more holistic admission. So looking beyond just a numerical evaluation, for example.
And talking about the importance of academics, how can students and learners use this particular time to actually beef up their knowledge and their academic acumen?
Sure. So there are many things that students can do. So from an academic point of view, we know, and I've got children myself, that are not able to engage as much, with teachers or obviously with classmates. But at the same time, certainly for high school students, a lot of that is in their own hands. So doing things that maybe South African students traditionally don't do enough of. So, for example, independent subject research. So, students that have a particular passion or love for a subject or a subject area. So to do more research around that, learning more about what they love as well, they can become more self-sufficient, get ahead of the competition, and take on more online or remote extracurricular activities. So certainly, while a lot of the kind of face-to-face, sporting, cultural, other activities have stopped, there is a lot that students can do, and we've seen it around the world with our students who, in parts of the world where they've been in lockdown, for example, for a long time, so some since December or January, and are kind of only more recently opening up, just being able to move those activities online into kind of social impact projects as well. Or taking on, even for South African students, taking on more challenging subjects in a extended curriculum or something like that as well. So it really is about looking at what can I control as a student. There are obviously a lot of things that students today can't control, but what are the things that I can control from an academic point of view, and how can I extend myself? Are really important questions to answer.
It sounds, Rebecca, that it's really more of a mind and mental shift more than anything else. Come, the 1st of June when schools reopen, as I said earlier on, a lot of students will not be able to participate in extracurricular activities merely because they involve a lot of physical contact. But what you're saying is that this is also an opportunity for students to find perhaps more non-conventional online ways to have those type of interactions that they ordinarily would have had on the field. How does one go about putting those type of processes together? You say that it's a show of leadership as well.
Sure. So I think, and there's different kinds of things that obviously different types of students can do. So now is a great time, for example, to engage in creative projects. So I think for like you say, it's very much a mind shift. It's also, I suppose, about being, disciplined, using the kind of time or power or flexibility that a student might have now that they didn't have previously, and then relooking at extracurricular options. So if for example, if a student has more time, then can dedicate that to a particular focus area, an area that they love. There may be practical things they can do as well. So meetings, they can move meetings online, plan ahead, do the things that they would have done, and find a way to move that digitally as well. So, for example, even something like, if being part of a sport, for example. So is there a workout, for example, that you can build, that a student can build for their team? For example, if you were going to be part of an event or a fundraising event, can you move that online through, a kind of Zoom or Google Meet platform as well? So certainly there are even from a practice point of view, practice more competitive activities, so debating, coding, and so on that you can do online as well. And there's a number of existing projects online that students can look at it being involved in as well. So I think it's about saying what was I involved in, and how can I move that online? And then outside of that, what else can I take on, that may be more creative, more academic than I was doing before, and use the time and flexibility that I now have.
You also talk, Rebecca, of personal projects that students could perhaps embark on, like maybe starting an app or maybe a new business. These type of initiatives, how do they inform potential academic institutions of higher learning, and how do they inform, the aptitude of that particular child?
Sure. So when we think about leadership, for example, it's important to think about initiatives that go beyond, ones that we're familiar with, so prefectship or, captain, whether it's sport captain, music captain, or whatever the case may be. So what institutions are looking for are really, students who have demonstrated, and particularly in a U.S. application to these kind of top, particularly the top private schools where I said there's a really kind of holistic, response. They're really looking for students who have demonstrated that leadership, they've demonstrated that engagement. They have a combination of impact, intelligence, creativity, initiatives, and so on. So they're really looking for a student's potential for success. They're looking for a cultural fit to life on campus. They want to know that you care enough and that you've made an impact in your own environment as well. So all of those initiatives where students use their their managerial, organizational leadership skills to create social impact, whether that's within, your own community, your own school community, your own local community, your, South African community. Those are really important features of qualities in a candidate that will inform who they accept and who they don't accept.
One thing, Rebecca, is that where we are right now in our country and in the world, and where we're moving towards a more digital era, and the opportunities that are now available for young people around the world are really, really vast. What type of advice do you at Crimson give to your students, not only about getting into an institution of higher learning, but perhaps opening up their world and opening up their minds, being in touch with other organizations around the world that can somehow propel them into the contribution that they will be making in the world when they, quote unquote, grow up?
Sure, I think interestingly, from I work with a lot of students and families, and students are very globalized in a lot of ways. They don't just think with a very kind of small mindset. They're interested in exploring the world around them, and in a lot of cases, bringing those ideas and initiatives and knowledge back to South Africa and being able to grow South Africa as well. But I think. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. But I think the important thing is that what we do is we work with students to be able to extend themselves in ways that they may not have thought of. So South African students very busy at school, very busy, as we know, with music activities and cultural and sporting activities, and so on. So it's important then that they start to take on and explore more in their own time. So, for example, doing online courses is really important, and something that a lot of our students are not necessarily doing by themselves. So subjects that interest them, take online courses. From our point of view, we connect students with mentors and tutors that are in top institutions around the world. They connect with other students from around the world as well. There's various opportunities, and students don't need to be part of Crimson to do this, but lots of initiatives that are happening at a global level that students can jump on as well and connect with each other in order to be able to do something that's beyond their small or immediate environment.
And in your experience, how large a role, if at all, do parents play in spurring their children on and perhaps exposing them to opportunities that they themselves never had when it was their time?
Sure, I think, parents, I think what we see is we see different things. So parents are very interested in finding opportunities for their children that will obviously help them grow and so on as well. I think for a lot of parents in this environment, it's about learning new skills, seeing what opportunities are out there as well. Certainly our current environment has forced parents into a different kind of role. So we see a lot of parents who are hands-on, but we also see really amazing students that are independent, and for a lot of them, it's about parents opening those doors, providing the opportunity for them to explore further, and then really students that are taking their own initiatives to be able to drive that, whether it's driving a particular social impact project, or whether it's taking a more challenging subject or an extended curriculum, or simply improving their kind of current academic grades.